Have you ever been in a room where one person just owns it? Not with fireworks or grand gestures, but with a quiet command that pulls everyone in like gravity. Their words land like stones in still water, ripples that linger. Conversations that echo long after the lights dim. You're pouring out stories, jokes, insights, firing on all cylinders, yet eyes wander, smiles fade into that polite nod. The universal signal for, I'm mentally checking my phone. You're broadcasting at full volume, but the signal's lost in static. Why does their whisper cut through the noise while your megaphone falls flat? It's a puzzle that gnaws at you, right? Not because you're dull or unprepared, far from it. You've got the material, the passion, the punchlines queued up, but here's the secret that's been hiding in plain sight. It's not about the noise you make. It's about the weight behind your words. That invisible force that turns fleeting chatter into something memorable, something magnetic. Weight isn't built by piling on more adjectives or anecdotes. It comes from precision, like a surgeon's scalpel, not a sledgehammer, from choosing silence as your ally, not your enemy. From showing up so fully in the moment that every syllable you utter feels backed by the full force of your presence. Like a spotlight cutting through fog. Picture this. A crowded dinner party. Laughter bubbling like champagne. Someone across the table shares a sliver of their world, a fleeting mention of a dream deferred. A quiet triumph snatched from the jaws of doubt. The room could pivot right there. But most of us? We lunge in with our own highlight reel. Oh. That reminds me of the time boom. The spotlight swings back to center stage. Us. Their door cracks open, and we barrel through, redecorating the space with our own furniture. Suddenly, they're the audience to a monologue they never auditioned for. Their eyes drifting to the dessert menu, plotting their escape hatch. But what if you flipped the script? What if, instead of seizing the mic, you handed it back with genuine intrigue? That's where the magic brews, not in flashy additions, but in deliberate subtractions. See, the world peddles this myth that charisma is a shopping list. Add wit. Sprinkle humor. Stack achievements like Lego bricks until you're towering and irresistible. Fill every pause with sparkle. Because silence? That's the villain. The awkward void to be vanquished at all costs. The Stoics? They saw through that smoke and mirrors centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius, scribbling by lamplight in his tent amid the chaos of empire, nailed it. Attraction isn't forged in the forge of excess. It's sculpted in the chisel of restraint. Strip away the performance, the desperate bid for applause in every breath. Ditch the urge to audition for approval with every vowel. Embrace the quiet gaps not as threats, but as sacred space, room for the other person to breathe, to bloom. And here's the paradox that hits like a thunderclap. The instant you release the death grip on attention, that's when it floods back to you. Not as a conquest, mind you. No sleight of hand. No puppet strings. This isn't a bag of conversational tricks to con folks into fondness. It's authenticity unmasked. Character shining through the cracks where polish used to be. As Marcus put it so bluntly in his meditations, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Don't debate the blueprint for magnetic speech. Live it. Don't mime fascination in your responses. Become the kind of soul whose very presence invites deeper dives through the cadence of your words. And crucially, the pauses where you let theirs resonate. That's the foundation we're building on today. I'm diving into 6 timeless communication principles, straight from the Stoic playbook but sharpened for our hyper-connected chaos. Each one unpacked with exact words and phrases you can deploy right now. Phrases that don't just fill airtime but forge connections that stick. These aren't gimmicks to gamify your charm. They're tools to amplify your true self. Drawing people in because they sense the real you. Unfiltered and unafraid. Oh, and spoiler. Number 4? It's the one everyone flips on its head. They chase elaboration like it's oxygen. Convinced more words equal more allure. Spoiler within a spoiler. It buries you deeper in the forgettable pile. If you're exhausted from echoing into the void, voicing volumes but harvesting silence, stick with me. We're cracking this code together. One principle at a time. Let's ignite that spark and turn your conversations from background hum to front row symphony. Starting strong with phrase number 1. Tell me more about that. Just 4 words, unassuming as a whisper in a storm. Yet they pack the punch of a plot twist. Imagine the scene. You're at a networking mixer. The air thick with small talk and clinking glasses. Your new acquaintance drops a casual bomb. I've been tinkering with urban gardening on my tiny balcony. Turning concrete jungle into edible oasis. The average response? A knee-jerk pivot. Urban gardening? I tried that once in my apartment phase, grew tomatoes that could have won awards. But then the squirrels declared war. Let me tell you about the epic siege. Cue the eye roll symphony. You've commandeered the narrative, transforming their olive branch into your victory lap. They're stranded on the sidelines, nodding through your soliloquy, their original spark fizzling like a dud firework. The door they cracked? You slammed it shut with your own welcome mat. Now, rewind and rewrite. They mention the balcony bounty. And you lean in, not with a launchpad for your ego, but with an invitation. Tell me more about that. Full stop. Mic drop. Your turn? Over. You zip it, sealing your lips like a vault. And then, the real alchemy, you listen. Not the performative nod fest where your brain's already scripting the sequel to their story. Fingers itching for the relay baton. No, this is the rare, raw curiosity that hums like a live wire. What crop kicked off their green thumb odyssey? Did the herbs whisper secrets through the city hum? How did that first harvest taste? Victory on a vine. Watch the transformation unfold in real time. Their face cracks open like dawn breaking over rooftops, eyes widening. Shoulders easing from that guarded hunch. Why? Because in a world of echo chambers disguised as dialogue, true inquiry is rarer than a quiet commute. Most folks navigate life as perpetual pitchers in a game of conversational hot potato. Biding time for their at-bat. Minds miles away on the pitch they'll hurl next. Or worse, they're Oscar-worthy actors in the theater of feigned fascination. Hearts elsewhere while lips murmur, But you're the unicorn. The one who genuinely hungers for the next chapter in their tale. Not to one-up it, not to weave it into your web, but to savor it, unadorned. Don't mistake this for sleight of tongue. Though, you can't counterfeit that spark. People's radars sniff out the phony faster than smoke detectors sense a singe. If their guitar riff or garden glow doesn't genuinely pique you, hold your peace. Let the silence settle like fresh snow. It's warmer than a lukewarm. That's cool, laced with ulterior motives. But when the curiosity strikes true, when their words land like a hook in your chest, tugging you closer, unleash those 4 syllables. Tell me more about that. It's not just a question, it's a bridge. Sturdy and spanning chasms of small talk into territories of real rapport. Think back to your last exchange that left you buzzing, not because of fireworks, but because someone saw you. Truly, remember that glow? That's the gift you're handing out here. In a sea of broadcasters, you become the beacon, and as they pour out their passion, you'll find the room shrinking, the noise fading, until it's just 2 souls trading treasures. That's the weight we talked about earlier, words that don't just echo but endure. Because they're rooted in removal, ego excised, agenda abandoned, attention absolute. But we're just warming up the engine. Hold that thought, because phrase number 2 builds on this foundation like a second story. Turning passive curiosity into active alliance. Imagine wielding questions not as interrogations, but as keys unlocking hidden doors. And just like that, those 4 simple words. Tell me more about that. Don't just crack the door, they swing it wide, inviting a flood of stories that might have stayed locked away forever. Picture the ripple effect unfolding right before your eyes, as they dive deeper into their guitar journey or that balcony garden miracle. The words tumble out like a hidden stream finally breaking free, longer sentences. Raw confessions, the kind of vulnerabilities they usually tuck away for rainy days or therapy sessions. Why? Because they're not accustomed to this. Someone who actually gives a damn about the answer. Hanging on every note without an agenda. It's like quenching a thirst they didn't even know they had. But here's the quiet revelation so many overlook. The one that turns a chat into something etched in memory. They won't walk away reciting your clever comebacks or the gems you dropped, no. That's not the echo that lingers. It's the warmth you stirred inside them. That rare glow of being truly seen. In our rush world, feeling heard isn't just nice, it's a luxury. Like stumbling on a forgotten melody that hits you square in the chest. and feeling like someone craves to unravel your layers. Not just biding time for their spotlight? That's unicorn rare, the stuff of legends whispered over coffee the next day. So when the evening winds down and they slip into the night, their mind isn't replaying your wit like a highlight reel. No, it's humming with this: wow, I felt alive talking to them. I felt interesting. Not just interesting to everyone else. That subtle shift? It's the secret sauce. The invisible thread that tugs them back for round 2, 3, a dozen more. Epictetus, that no-nonsense Stoic teacher with his feet planted in the dirt of real life, nailed it for his wide-eyed students. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. He wasn't preaching passivity. Oh no. Listening's a full-throttle act. A deliberate choice where the real magic brews. Connections forging like steel in a hidden forge. You're not crashing the party to dazzle with fireworks, my friend. You're there to ignite theirs. With that unhurried, bone-deep interest in their world. In an era where everyone's auditioning for the role of most captivating human, polishing lines, chasing likes, genuine curiosity stands out like a lantern in fog. Watch the dominoes fall. Talks plunge into uncharted depths at warp speed. Walls crumble without a siege. Hearts unfurl like morning glories chasing the sun. Suddenly, you're not just another face in the crowd. You're the one they text at 2 a.m. with, "Remember that thing I said?" There's more, not for your TED-worthy advice or epic tales spun from thin air, but because you handed them the rarest gift, the space to feel heard, to matter. That's the true thunder in those 4 words, not in the saying, but in the soul behind them, the intent that pulses like a heartbeat. And speaking of pulses quickening, let's pivot to the second phrase, the one folks sidestep like a crack in the sidewalk, convinced it'll swallow their cool whole. Spoiler: it doesn't weaken you, it fortifies, turning vulnerability into velvet steel. Phrase number 2. I don't know. 3 little words that send shivers down the spine of the self-assured. Someone lobs a curveball your way, an opinion on quantum quirks or the finer points of vintage wine, and bam, you're out of your depth. The knee-jerk? Bluff like a poker pro. Whip up a half-baked hot take dressed in jargon. Or dodge with a misty, it depends, that evaporates on contact. Anything to pirouette around the truth. You're drawing a blank. Why? Because owning the gap feels like flashing a "kick me" sign, admitting you're not omnipotent, that there's a chink in your armor, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, you're human after all. And in that moment, the inner critic snarls, "You should know this." Not knowing? That's a flaw, a glitch in the system. But pause and peer behind the curtain. What unfolds when the bluff goes live? You're mid-convo. The question lands like a gentle probe. Yet instead of a candid shrug, out pours a polished facade. You sense it instantly, don't you? That echoey ring to their words. Like a drum struck on an empty stage, surface shine, zero substance. They're strutting false feathers, broadcasting bravado borrowed from Google Ghosts. And just like that, trust phrase at the edges. If they're scripting certainty here, over something as innocent as a book rec, what shadows lurk in their bolder claims? Are their convictions quicksand in disguise? The bluff doesn't crown them sage, it unmasks the scramble. The itch to be seen as all-knowing. A fortress built on sand. Now, flip the frame to the unflappable soul. The one who owns their edges without apology. Same query sails in. They draw a breath, not a flinch, then deliver it plain. I don't know. Period. No footnotes on their blind spots. No mea culpa for mere mortality. No swerve to safer shores they can lord over. Just those 3 words, tossed out calm as a summer breeze, no drama. No dirge for the death of their ego. And in that breath, trust blooms like wildflowers after rain. Why? Simple arithmetic. If they're this forthright about the voids, imagine the bedrock beneath their certainties. When they do weigh in, with that steady gaze and unvarnished take, it lands with gravity. Untainted by showmanship. They're not tap dancing for your nod, they're extending a straight-shot bridge. Raw and reliable. Socrates, that gadfly of ancient Athens, wandering markets and minds alike, grasped this like a torch in the dark. I know that I know nothing. Not a coy bow or scripted humility, no. It was the dawn of true wisdom. The bold stroke of mapping your own horizon's end. The jittery souls? They armor up, desperate to dazzle across every field. Facts be damned, but the steady ones, the confident core? They're at ease in the unknown, whispering, I don't know, like an old friend dropping by. It's not defeat, it's declaration, a flag planted in fertile ground, where growth sprouts from the gaps. And in that honesty, you don't just connect, you captivate. Because who wouldn't orbit a star that shines by what it doesn't hide? And oh, that, I don't know, we just unpacked, it's like flipping a switch from fragile facade to unshakable foundation. Where trust isn't earned through endless expertise, but through the quiet courage of owning your edges. Imagine the shift it sparks. Like a deep exhale rippling through a tense room. Suddenly, folks unwind around you, shoulders dropping that invisible armor they didn't even know they were lugging. No more tiptoeing on eggshells, bracing for your next fact bomb to eclipse their own glow. The air lightens, no ego jousts, no silent scorecards tallying who's the sharper mind. And when you do step forward with real knowing, that moment you've marinated in the topic like a well-brewed storm? They lean in, ears perked, because you've etched the pattern. Your voice isn't a showboat horn, blaring for applause. It's a lighthouse beam, steady, selective, slicing through doubt only when the truth demands it. Your words? They hit different now, heavy with the kind of gravity that comes from balance, the scales tipped not by bluster, but by the bold admission of blanks on the map. You've shown your game to chart the unknowns. So when you plant a flag on solid ground, it sticks, deep, undeniable. But beware the siren song, the sneaky pitfall that masquerades as grace, wielding, I don't know, like a coy curtain call. You know the script, oh, I don't know anything about that, trailed by a TED Talk avalanche proving you actually mapped the whole terrain. It's just smoke and mirrors. Another act in the endless theater of pretense, leaving everyone none the wiser and you none the warmer. No, the real play calls for unvarnished truth. When the fog rolls in and you're adrift, own it clean. Let the words hang there, simple as a shared glance. Then, if the spark of wonder flickers, that genuine itch to chase the horizon together, pivot with warmth. I don't know. Want to figure it out together? It's an open hand, not a veiled hook. Shun the charade of feigned fog or forged fire. Both are just costumes in the grand masquerade. Be the one who stands plain in the light, mapping what's known and nodding to the rest. That rawness? It's a magnet stronger than any polished PhD badge, drawing souls who crave the real over the rehearsed. If this week handed you a curveball where bluffing could have been the easy out, yet you chose the clear-eyed, I don't know, instead, drop a quiet, I chose truth, in the comments below. Not to spill the specifics of your blank spot, but to toast that pivot, the one where authenticity trumped the itch to impress. String those moments together like beads on a thread, and watch how they weave not flimsy fame, but the kind of quiet authority that echoes long after the chatter fades, trust forged in fire. Not facade. Now, let's lean into the third phrase. The quiet lifesaver that yanks you back from the ledge so many tumble over when a friend unloads their storm. It's the one that turns knee-jerk fixes into heartfelt bridges, reminding us that sometimes, the strongest support isn't a toolkit, but a steady ear. Phrase number 3. That sounds difficult. Picture it. A close pal slumps into the chair across from you. Voice cracking like thin ice underfoot. Work's swallowing me whole, deadlines piling like avalanche snow. Every day's a scramble just to breathe. Or maybe it's the rawer cut. This thing with my partner. It's fraying at the edges. And I'm not sure how to stitch it back. They're not scripting a heist for your genius. They're offloading the weight that's bent their spine double. That invisible rucksack of exhaustion from juggling flames they never signed up to tame. And what's our autopilot? That noble urge to play hero. Charging in with the cavalry. Have you tried delegating more? Or the classic redirect? What if you just set boundaries, like I did back when my own chaos hit peak? Even the well-meaning memoir, when I was drowning in that mess. Here's the lifeline I grabbed. You pat yourself on the back for the assist. Right? Wrong. It's a subtle sidestep. A well-intentioned fumble that lands like a thud. They didn't tune in for your blueprint. They tuned in to exhale. Your solution. Whispers not rescue, but rebuke. This knot you've wrestled for weeks? Untie it my way, it's child's play. Why the holdup? Oof. The burden doesn't lift, it doubles. Laced now with a sting of inadequacy. Not just the unsolved ache, but the fresh bruise. If only I'd been sharper. Quicker. Your 5-second fix should have been mine ages ago. But what if you held the line instead, letting their words settle like dust after a gust? Enter those 3 gentle anchors. That sounds difficult. No blueprint unfurled, no scale to weigh it against your war stories. No rush to shrink it small. Just a mirror held steady, reflecting the heft of their load. Yes, this is heavy. This is real. This deserves its space. Its permission wrapped in empathy. A soft nod that says, your feelings? Valid. No defense needed. No instant cure required. In a world quick to prescribe and dismiss, this rarity blooms like rain in desert cracks. Space to simply be. Unjudged. Unbroken. Watch the alchemy ignite. Their guarded floodgates creak open wider. Stories spilling not in defense, but in discovery. You haven't slammed the brakes with unsolicited strategy. You've cleared the path, inviting them to wander their own winding trail aloud. And isn't that the hidden genius? Processing in tandem. Voices braiding without the pressure to patch? Most epiphanies don't thunder from on high. They whisper up from the muddle. Clarified in the company of someone who's content to witness. Not wrench. They linger longer. Laugh freer. Maybe even glimpse their next step. Not because you mapped it, but because you made the map theirs to draw. That's the quiet power here. Not in solving, but in seeing. Turning echoes of isolation into harmonies of, I've got you. And in that witnessing, holding space without the rush to resolve, we hand over the truest lifeline. One that echoes far beyond any quick fix. It's those unhurried moments, where their thoughts untangle like vines in sunlight, that weave the deepest bonds, not from our sage nods, but from the simple grace of presence. As Marcus Aurelius etched into his midnight reflections, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Ah, but how the world flips that script, doesn't it? We barrel in stern with the rest. Just tweak this. Push harder. It's not rocket science, while coddling our own stumbles like fragile heirlooms. True grit, though, it's the quiet art of patience poured out for their thorns. Even as you sharpen your own edges in the shadows. When a friend lays bare their tangle, they're not scouting for your gavel or blueprint, they crave that gentle harbor. The nod that whispers, this weight you're hauling? It's yours to name, hard as hell, no matter how light it might sit on my shoulders. Feel the tide turn then, subtle as a current shifting underfoot. Folks start seeking you out not for band-aids, but for the buried aches, the raw confessions that simmer beneath polite chatter. The storms they've weathered solo too long. Why? You've become the rare port in the gale. No snap judgments to sting. No hasty patches to belittle the bruise. Just ears attuned. A validation that blooms like dew on parched leaves. Carving out room for the mess to breathe. And oh, that room. That elusive pocket where struggle can sprawl without a spotlight or scalpel. It's the cradle of connections that don't fray at the first tug. You morph into sanctuary, the steady flame they circle when the winds howl. Not because you've hoarded every map, but because you never feign the compass. Advice? If it bubbles up from them, hey, what would you do? Toss it light as a shared secret, when shadows like that dogged me. This lantern flickered help, might not glow for you, but it's here if the dark calls for it. You're no oracle dictating their dawn, you're the companion tracing their twilight. And sometimes, that gaze alone mends more than mountains of counsel. Now, brace for the summit, the discipline that sorts the echoes from the thunder. Phrase number 4. Silence. It's the forge where most falter. Hearts pounding like war drums at the first hush. Convinced the whole exchange teeters on collapse. A beat stretches, 2, 3 heartbeats, and panic claws in. Flood it fast. With whatever spills. Idle weather wisps. Unsolicited sagas from your scrapbook. Opinions orbiting like distant moons. Adding zilch but volume. Why the frenzy? Silence looms like a verdict. You're bombing this, the sparks snuffed. And it's on you to fan the flames with frantic chatter. So you do, layering on the logorrhea until your voice blends into elevator music. training the room like reluctant pups that your stream is just white noise, endless. Dismissible, the kind that washes over without a ripple. But tilt your gaze to the quiet architects, those souls at ease in the hush like old oaks rooted deep. Picture the lively knot of voices swirling at a fireside gathering, sparks flying in every direction. They, a serene island amid the froth, not mute from a barren mind, but biting, eyes keen for the gem worth unearthing. A query arcs their way, casual as a tossed pebble, no reflex lunge, instead, a deliberate breath, the pause blooming, 2 seconds, 3, like space carved from stone. They mull it, not in showy spins, but in that inner chamber where thoughts distill to essence. Then, out it comes. One honed arrow of insight, loosed clean and true, end of transmission. And the circle? It hushes, drawn taut as bowstrings, every ear a satellite locked on their signal. That prelude of quiet? It wasn't void, it was voltage. A herald that whatever follows packs the punch of purpose. They seal it seamless too. No scramble to mortar the aftermath with filler. Let the words settle like embers in ash, inviting echoes from the others or, if the moment calls, cradling the stillness like a shared breath. What sorcery stirs in that void? Wait, pure and ponderous, speak seldom, and your utterances arrive armored, each one a boulder skipping across the pond with purpose. Master the mute, and the disquiet dances around you. Folks fidget, then flood the gap, spilling unguarded streams to soothe the stretch. Isn't it wild? You glean a lifetime's lore from those frantic fillings, the ticks that betray their truest self, the fissures in their polish when poise slips, the raw undercurrents surging when the script crumbles. An hour of polished patter? Surface scratches, but those off-the-cuff confessions in the awkward lull? They map the hidden rivers, unveiling the performer behind the mask, the whispers they bury in broad daylight. Yet here's the hinge, the heart pounder. It hinges on your hush being home, not hostage. If you're perched there, pulse racing like a cornered hare, eyes darting for rescue from the quiet's grip, they sense the storm in your stillness, the itch that screams discomfort, mirroring it back until the air thickens with mutual unease. But if you're rooted there like an ancient tree in the hush, genuinely at peace with the quiet, drawing no frantic energy from the endless hum of words to shore up your sense of self, that serenity? It's a quiet contagion, seeping into the space like morning mist, easing the tension from their frames until they, too, soften into unguarded ease. Relaxed souls spill truths like rivers after thaw. The scripted ones? They tiptoe on eggshells, every syllable a calculated step. And you, craving the raw vein of honesty, wouldn't trade that for 1,000 polished pleasantries. Seneca, that unflinching Roman sage, captured it in ink stained by life's relentless grind. Silence is a lesson learned from the many sufferings of life. He saw it clear as a winter sky, the ceaseless talkers. Those whirlwinds of words, often fleeing phantoms within, the gnawing echo of their thoughts, the ballast of scars they've shouldered, the raw ache of solitude with their own reflection. But those who've lingered in the forge of true trial, who've stared down the abyss without flinching, they emerge knowing silence isn't a barren chamber, echoing void. No, it's brimming, a vessel swollen with the essence of now, pure presence. Undivided gaze, the unhurried grace to simply exist, unburdened by the tick-tock demand to dazzle every half-minute or risk fading into irrelevance. Master this alchemy, settle into that bone-deep comfort where your voice stirs only for substance, not survival, and witness the world tilt in your favor. In the swirl of a group, eyes begin to drift your way like compass needles to true north, seeking not filler, but the unvarnished verdict when the fluff falls away. You, no squandering syllables on milquetoast musings or the weather's weary script. Your rare utterances arrive as arrows fletched for the mark. Contributions that cut through the din because they're born of intent, not impulse. One-on-one, those encounters plunge like divers into hidden coves. Unmarred by your chatter papering over the pauses, you surrender the stage to the stillness, letting it labor like a master sculptor, chiseling away the superficial until the core gleams. And in that velvet void, depths unlock, whispers they'd bury under a barrage of banter, confessions that bloom only in the breath between beats. This isn't the chill of aloofness, a miserly hoarding of heart, Far from it. It's the warmth of arrival so complete, so anchored, that words become optional scaffolding, not the whole edifice. Your being? It fills the frame, a steady pulse that needs no narration. And that effortless poise, that elusive ease with the unadorned moment, it's a lodestone, pulling orbits closer without a whisper of effort. If this fourth pillar struck a chord, if you caught yourself in the mirror of memory, rushing to plug those pregnant pauses born of your own inner squirm, hit that subscribe button right now. Let it be the anchor, the nudge for those split-second saves, the next time the quiet creeps in and your tongue twitches to banish it. Breathe instead, so you claim the power of less. And in sharing this ripple, someone else discovers their voice needn't shout to echo. Shifting gears to the fifth gem, the one that quenches a thirst the world pretends doesn't exist, a nod to the soul behind the service. The steady light that rarely gets its due. Phrase number 5. I appreciate you. Not the rote, thank you. That currency of courtesy doled out like change, not, thanks for the assist. Ledgering the favor like a ticked box, not even, I appreciate what you pulled off. Which tallies the deed but skims the doer. They're the grease of transactions, oiling the gears of give and take. Saluting the output, the sweat equity logged and logged off. Your buddy hauls boxes through a sweltering afternoon to ease your chaos? Thanks, man. Colleague jumps in on your deadline deluge? Appreciate the backup. Solid, sure. Etiquette's nod to the now, but it spotlights the motion. The momentary muscle, leaving the mover in shadow. Now, lean in closer. I appreciate you. Those 3 words? They're a lantern swung low, illuminating not the task, but the timeless tide beneath, the who, the why, the unwavering why of them. See it play out in the quiet theater of loyalty. Your ride or die surfaces again, materializing through the fog of your foulest stretch. That rock they've always been without fanfare. The standard script? Thanks for having my back this round. It's gracious, no doubt. Props for the presence in the pinch, but it's tethered to the instance. The isolated act like a snapshot in a stack. But pivot to the profound. I appreciate you. Suddenly, it's not a footnote to this favor, it's a full-page tribute to their tapestry, the habitual harbor they offer. Storm after storm, unbidden and unboasted, that's the marrow of character. The quiet code etched in their every choice. And you're the one calling it out, eyes wide to the pattern. You're not just clocking the cameo, you're charting the constellation. Affirming. I see you. The you that shows up not for spotlight or score, but because it's woven into your warp and weft. The you that endures when the applause dies and the ask is absent. And oh, the hunger for this, it's a cavernous ache, gnawing silent in the grind of daily doings. Society slots us into slots, cogs at the desk, churning metrics like machines, pillars at the hearth, dispensing dinners and drives on autopilot. We're quantified ceaselessly, KPIs and to dose. The ledger of labor never closing until the soul beneath atrophies. Parched for a gaze that pierces the productivity veil. What if someone pierced it, murmuring, I behold the essence of you, beyond the errands and outputs. And that essence? It anchors me, it matters, full stop. That's the elixir, the rare rain on the arid plain of appraisal. Yet wield it wisely, this phrase like fine vintage, squander it on trifles. And it sours to syrupy sap. I appreciate you for grabbing the creamer. It evaporates, weightless as vapor, diluted in the deluge. Hoard it for the hearth moments, the steady cadence of their constancy. The glimmers of grit that glow through the grind. Character unfurling not in flash, but in faithful folds. Save it for when they're being, not they're busy. Brushes your world, and watch how it lingers. A warmth that words alone can't muster. And in those deliberate doses of, I appreciate you, we don't just nod to the deed, we illuminate the doer. Etching their essence into the light where it belongs. Flash to the office trenches, where the fluorescent hum drones on past quitting time. Your colleague lingers like a shadow in the storm, sleeves rolled up, diving into the deadline deluge that threatened to drown you both. The easy out? Thanks for sticking around, saved my skin. It's tidy, transactional. A quick handshake across the ledger of labor. Clocking the overtime but glancing past the overtime soul. But lean deeper, infuse it with the full frame. I appreciate you. You always show up when it counts. Suddenly, it's not a footnote to the frenzy, it's a full portrait of their quiet constancy. The thread of reliability woven through the chaos. The human heartbeat that pulses steady when the world's off kilter. You're not saluting the sacrifice of one evening. You're honoring the architecture of who they are, the one who anchors without fanfare. Who chooses presence over convenience time and again? Marcus Aurelius, that emperor-philosopher rising with the Roman dawn, didn't waste his waking hours tallying favors like a merchant's ledger. No, he turned his gaze inward and outward in equal measure, pondering not the ledger of deeds, but the luminous weave of souls encircling him. In his meditations, he murmured a morning mantra that cuts to the core. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. He grasped the quiet thunder of it all, affirming not the utility of others. What have you done for me lately? But their sheer, shimmering existence. The quirks that quirk. The flaws that flavor. The character that carves canyons in the commonplace. To name that, it's rarer than a flawless diamond in the dust. A whisper in a hurricane. And rarity? It doesn't just sparkle, it summons. Drawing the weary and the wondering like moths to a flame that warms without scorching. When you step into that rare air, becoming the seer who spots the full spectrum of a person. Beyond the bullet points of their bustle, feel the gravity shift. Subtle as a tide turning under moonlight, loyalty blooms not from your ledger of IOUs, but from the mirror you hold. I see you, whole and wondrous, not as a means to my ends. In this assembly line age, where we're all reduced to outputs, widgets at work, providers at play, metrics marching in endless audit, you emerge as the outlier. The oasis affirming. Flawed? Yes. Consistent? Absolutely. Worthy? Just for the wild, walking miracle of being? Unequivocally. That's the pull, isn't it? A human hum that resonates bone deep. Not some sleight of hand spell, but the simplest sorcery, reflection. We ache for it, that unguarded gaze, like parched earth for the first fat raindrop. Most of us, we glimpse it in fragments, fleeting as fireflies at dusk. Then it's gone, leaving us to chase shadows in the functional fog. Yet here's the quiet command. Wield it with the precision of a poet's pen, sparingly. So it sings, holy. So it soars. Let it land not as habit, but as revelation. And observe the alchemy, eyes widen. Postures ease, a subtle thaw in the guarded glances. They clock it crystal clear. You're not bartering thanks for their toil. Tallying tasks like tokens in a game. No, you're tracing the traits, the quiet codes of character that no paycheck or pat on the back can purchase. And in that naming, bonds forge, fierce and fibrous, the kind that weather wrecks where mere exchanges splinter at the first squall. Loyalty isn't leased. It's kindled in the recognition that says, your being? It's the bridge I cross, not the toll I pay. Now, we crest to the crescendo. The capstone phrase that's a battlefield for most, elusive as smoke. Essential as breath. Without it, your every utterance floats untethered, whispers in wind, because respect? It roots in the refusal you can render. Phrase number 6. No. One syllable, sharp as a stiletto, stubborn as ancient stone. The Everest of elocution that leaves tongues tied and tempers tested. Picture the ambush. A colleague corners you by the coffee machine. Eyes hopeful hooks. Hey, can you cover my pitch tomorrow? It's killer, but family's calling. Or the social snare. The reunion's this weekend. Be there or be square. Your gut twists. No. 1,000 times no. The hour's yours. The energy's ebbing. The yes would carve another chunk from your carving self. Yet out slips the sidestep. Sure, I can swing it, laced with lie, or the hazy hedge. Maybe, let me check my stars. Maybe that's mostly misery, or the elaborate evasion. Buried in briefs till Tuesday. But rain check? Anything but the bare blade. No. Why the waltz around it? Because no lands like a gauntlet thrown, raw rejection. A ripple of rudeness. The scarlet letter of, selfish. Stubborn, not on the team. Better to swallow the sour. Nod through the nonsense. Then risk the rift. So you do. Layering yes upon yes like bricks in a brittle wall. Until your days blur into a borrowed blur. Evenings eclipsed by events you endure. Energies siphoned to souls who scarcely stir yours. Presence pledged to pursuits that pillage your peace. Each capitulation? A curriculum. My clock's communal currency, yours for the taking. No questions, no quarters, boundaries, blurred to oblivion, a faint line in the sand washed away by the next wave of wants. And the fallout? It creeps like fog over a fallow field. Exhaustion etching lines where laughter should linger. Resentment simmering like a pot left too long on low. Calendars crammed with commitments that clang hollow. Leaving the ledger of your life stark and starved, no room for the reeds that recharge. The rambles that restore, the quiet quarters where you reclaim the reins. Peering closer at the no-sayers. Those rare rangers who roam their own range. They don't crumble under the cascade, they curate it. Pausing like sentinels at the gate. The ask arrives, arrow straight. They weigh it not in whims, but in the quiet calculus of want. Does this weave into my warp? Or fray it further? If the scale tips, no. Out it comes. No. I can't. Clean as a cut quill. No novella of remorse trailing like contrails. No fabricated fog of, swamped, just the jewel of truth. Unadorned. Skip the, sorry symphony. That softens the strike. Dodge the, perhaps later. That dangles a door for dread returns. No, firm. A full stop etched in empathy's ink. The asker? They might blink. A flicker of frost in the follow-up. Surprise sharpening to a sigh or a subtle sting. But beneath, respect roots. Deep and deliberate. Because you've unveiled the uncommon. A soul who tallies their time as treasure. Guarding the gates not from greed, but from grace. Preserving the pool for what truly pours life back in. Your yes gleams golden only when no stands sentinel. A boundary boss that broadcasts. Choices chart this course. Not currents carry it. Flood the field with unchecked affirmatives. And yes erodes to echo, default drone. Devoid of delight. The hum of habit over the thrill of the hunt. But balance the beam. Let no be the North Star steering your seas. And suddenly, your affirmatives arrive armored. Arrivals that astonish because they're anointed, scarce, sincere, surging with the surplus of a life not leaked away. Isn't that the irony's edge? In saying no, you whisper yes to yourself. And in that self-song, others hear the harmony of one who honors their own hymn. And in that firm, no, we don't just draw a line in the sand, we etch a compass rose. Guiding our yeses toward shores that truly call to us. Epictetus, that weathered Stoic with eyes sharpened by chains and choices, drove it home like a nail in oak. First learn the meaning of what you say. And then speak. But how many of us leap to yes like lemmings off a ledge? Blind to the bargain struck? That single syllable? It's no mere courtesy, it's a covenant. Pledging your irreplaceable troves. The hours that slip like sand. The spark that fuels your fire. The very breath you bend to be there. Every hasty yes flung at the frivolous? It's a stealthy sabotage. A whispered no to the dreams you cradle close. To the quests that quicken your pulse. To the priorities you proclaim like banners but starve in the shadows of scattered schedules. You didn't voice the veto, you voted it in silence, to your own rhythm. Your hidden hungers, the life you sketch in stolen margins because the chorus of yeses drowned out the solo. Feel the scales tip, though, when you claim the courage to voice the no, clean, unadorned, a boundary drawn not in blood but in breath. Folks cease their casual commandeering. No longer presuming your presence as public domain. Their asks arrive rarer, refined, like arrows fletched with forethought, mindful of the mark, and when your yes breaks the surface, unbidden and bold, it gleams like gold dust in a stream, cherished because it's carved from conviction, not cornered by cowardice. You harvest the harvest, time unfurled like a long-held sail, energy ebbing back into your veins like a returning tide. Focus forged sharp as a hawk's gaze on the horizon that haunts you. No more the whirlwind of whims you wished away. The mosaic of must-dos that mocked your mornings. Instead, a reclaimed realm, yours to roam, to root, to render rich with the pursuits that pulse with purpose. Whisper it without the wince of apology's veil. Without excuses woven like spider silk. Without the hazy hedge of, maybe, that muddles more than it mends. Just know. A declaration as simple as dawn. Affirming. This time, it's mine. A vault I tend, a flame I fan, and witness the wonder. Your presence swells in stature. No longer the default donation but the deliberate gift. Savored because it's scarce, not squandered. Boundaries? They don't build moats to repel, they raise lanterns, luring the kindred who linger for the light, while the opportunists fade like mist at midday, the ones who orbited only because your orbit was open to all comers. Unchallenged and unchecked. These 6 pillars: curiosity that cracks the shell, honesty that honors the hollows, validation that voices the valid, silence that speaks volumes in spoken, recognition that reaches the root, boundaries that bolster the bold. They're no sleight of hand spells, no bag of conversational baubles to dazzle the crowd. They're the quiet quarry of character, quarried raw and revealed in the rhythm of your replies, the pauses you permit, the lines you lay down. And character? That's the lodestar, the low hum that hooks hearts, not the honeyed phrases you polish to perfection, but the pulse beneath them, the who that whispers through the what. Catch the common thread, woven like gold in the warp. None demand the donning of a mask, the frantic footwork of facade. They summon simply this: presence. That rare rain on the arid plain of performance, interested enough to incline an ear, not just nod through the noise, secure enough to stand in the shade of, I don't know. Unashamed. Patient enough to cradle the chaos without clutching for cures, at ease in the hush. Letting it harvest truths where tumult tamps them down, attentive enough to pierce the veil of verbs. Spotting the soul in the service, strong enough to sheath your sword of self in sheaths of no. Guarding the garden where your gifts grow. The Stoics, those desert-worn sages scanning the stars for sense, saw it etched in eternity. Attraction blooms not in the bramble of buildup, the frantic fetch of more, but in the shears of subtraction. The bold prune that bears the branch to sun. Cease the ceaseless chase to dazzle, the scramble to stuff every shadow with shine. Bid farewell to the yes that yawns from your throat when no knocks at the core. And in that exhale, the great unmasking, the surrender of the spotlight, attention awakens, not to the script you spin, but to the scribe behind it, the steady self, unveiled and unyielding. If these threads tugged at your tongue, reshaping the shape of your speech, hit subscribe. Let it loop back when the lull tempts you to fill it, or the ask aches for your acquiescence. Pass it along to that friend who floods the floor with words but famines for the feast of listening, who could use this map from monologue to mirror. Because the truest allure? It's the art of arrival. Cease the strut for seduction, and simply show up, present, peeled bare. From there, the rest rivers forth, unbidden and boundless.